Jake Asman, host of the Jake Asman Show on YouTube, also found on ESPN New York and Mad Dog Radio. Jake, thanks so much for coming on. How are you today?
Steve, Paulie, appreciate you guys having me on the show. Hope all is well.
All right. Let's talk some NFL. Let's talk some New York Jets. It is cut day in the NFL. Anything fans need to be aware of with the Jets on cut day?
You know, it's interesting. In the past, the Jets have really needed this day to kind of fill out their roster. You know, this year's team, it's more about trying to basically preserve as many quality football players as you could possibly have, because they have some really tough decisions just with their own roster, right? I mean, how many defensive linemen are you going to take? There's probably 13 or even 14 who have a pretty good case to be made. They belong on the team, but you can't keep everybody. How many wide receivers are you going to end up taking? Either 6 or 7, maybe just 5, and they look to fill a need elsewhere. That's like the only spot where I think maybe they would add a veteran. And then there's, some other stuff. Are you going to keep 3 or 4 running backs? Is Izzy Abanikanda going to make this team? I think personally he should. It seems like he will, but you still got some time between now and that 4 p.m. deadline for cuts. But for the most part, I don't think there's going to be anything too crazy that comes out of Jets cuts.
All right. Do you expect Hassan Reddick to play in the season opener? And if he does miss some time, how big of a loss is that? And who needs to step up and fill the void?
So I do not expect Reddick to play in week 1, but I do expect him to show up at some point next week. I think it's September 2nd or September 3rd for him to show up and still get his game check. I think he's basically exhausted all his options. I think he could hold out. He can make the statement he wants to be paid this or that. But when push comes to shove, the best thing for Hassan Reddick is to play football this year and go out there and have a 5th straight double-digit sack season and help the Jets win. And if they're not the ones who are paying you when you hit free agency next year, at least someone then will pay you. If he sits out, doesn't have a good year, all of a sudden he's 30 going on age 31 without playing football, who's going to give him big money? It's certainly not the Jets. So I think at some point he shows up. It wouldn't surprise me if it happens next week, but he's missed the entire offseason program. He has not been in this system before. So I don't know what type of shape he's going to be in. I don't know if the Jets are going to put him out there. So I don't see him playing week 1. I wouldn't bank on it, but I do see him playing week 2 and beyond.
What is your biggest concern about this team at this stage as the season opener approaches?
For me, it's just, can they just stay healthy, right? I mean, talent-wise, I think the Jets are as talented of a team as any team in the conference, especially the AFC East. I mean, you're just talking about, a team that has a 40-year-old quarterback. He's looked great this summer. I've been out at Jets camp about 4 or 5 times and been just blown away actually watching what, a good quarterback is supposed to look like. It's a novel concept for Jet fans. But, just seeing the way Aaron looks, you're excited about that. But he's got to stay healthy, and that's the biggest thing. Making sure Tyron Smith, could go out there and give you 12 or 13 games. You have, legitimate backup and Olu Fashanu you drafted in the first round. But, you're relying on Mike Williams coming off the ACL. He's starting team drills this week. So, all the, injury question marks to this point are solid if you're a Jet fan. But, just staying healthy after the way this team has been decimated by injuries the last couple of years, that to me is the biggest thing. If you guarantee me health, especially health from Rodgers, I think the Jets are a 10 or 11 win team at the minimum. They've won 7 the last 2 years with no quarterback. You get competent quarterback play, I think they're at least a 10-win team. So I think it's just staying on the field. If you get Aaron out there for, let's say, 15 games and Tyrod Taylor plays the other 2, you can go 1-on-1 with Tyrod, and all of a sudden I think you feel pretty good about your chances of ending this playoff drought.
I did want to ask you about Aaron Rodgers, and you touched on it a little bit right there, but what are you expecting out of him this year? And do you still consider him, with his advanced age and coming off the injury and all that, is he still considered a top, 15 quarterback in the league right now? Where do you kind of put him, and what are you expecting production-wise out of him?
Yeah, I definitely do think he's a top 15 quarterback in the league. It's hard for me to find 14 other guys I'd rather have besides Rodgers. I think the debate gets interesting. Is he in the top 10? And if he is in the top 10, how high up is he in the top 10? Look, the reality is he didn't play last year. His last season in Green Bay, for his standards, wasn't great, but he still threw 26 touchdowns and had only 12 interceptions and 3,700 yards passing. He does that exact same thing with the Jets this year. He'd be a top 15 quarterback, and this team with their defense and the weapons he has, they're going to be certainly a playoff team. So, I think Aaron Rodgers still is capable of being a top 8 quarterback. I just think the key thing for him is being healthy. I think he's been rejuvenated by coming to New York. I think he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. He's got a lot of people, calling him out, saying he's washed, people doubting him. He feeds off that. So if he could stay healthy, I just don't see him being bad. Maybe he's not an MVP level player, but I'd be hard pressed to find probably 14 other guys that are better at the quarterback position than Aaron Rodgers.
All right, let's talk about the wide receiver position. Some of the guys he's going to be throwing to, the addition of Mike Williams, and opposite Garrett Wilson. I mean, what are you looking at from the wide receiver position? It looks like he's got some weapons to throw to. How big of an addition is Mike Williams to this offense?
I think it's huge. I think he's a major X factor for this team because if you think about it, you have Garrett Wilson, who I think is a legitimate star. I think we'll be talking about Garrett Wilson in that top 5 wide receiver debate by the end of the year. He could break basically every Jet record if he stays his entire career with the Jets. I don't know if people truly realize how special Garrett is to put up 1,000-yard seasons back-to-back years. No Jet receiver has ever done that when they've entered the league. And Garrett Wilson's had 8 different trash quarterbacks essentially throwing to him the last 2 years. So if he stays healthy, he's a star. The key is, you mentioned Mike Williams. He's got to be the number 2, right? He's got to step up. He's got to be on the field. He's got to be a guy who could take the top off the defense. Him and Rodgers executing that back shoulder throw, especially in the red zone, you could see that being, just an absolute weapon of an option for the Jets. So I really like the signing. It's low risk. It's a 1-year deal with incentives based on playing time. So if he could go out there and based on all the reports out of camp, he's healthy, he feels good. If he could go out there and stay healthy and be productive, I think that opens things up for the rest of the offense, the tight ends, Malachi Corley, who they drafted to be in the slot. I think he's such a major key to what they want to do around Garrett Wilson.
You mentioned a moment ago you think this team's winning double-digit games and going to the playoffs. The AFC East is tough to handicap this year, right? Between the Bills and Dolphins and Jets, and I think we all agree the Patriots probably finished last. But what is your pecking order there with the top 3? How do you see it playing itself out?
Yeah, look, this to me is the Jets division, and that's probably crazy to sound, to say out loud. I think a lot of people just say, same old Jets, LOL. But, just watching how good this team was outside of the quarterback spot the last 2 years, they just need someone to go out there and be competent, above average. I mean, they won 7 games last year with, listen to this list of quarterbacks: Zach Wilson, who's now the 3rd stringer in Denver; Tim Boyle, who's on the practice squad in Houston, he's their 4th string guy; and Trevor Siemian, who's out of the league. I mean, this defense the last 2 years has allowed less than 20 points. Aaron Rodgers in his career is 81-10 and 36-2 since 2016, when the defense allowed 20 points or less. So I just don't think they're that far away. I have a little bit of concerns about, the coaching staff and if Robert Saleh is ready, to lead this team to a division title. But I don't think Buffalo has gotten better this offseason. I think the Milano injury is a big one. I don't think Miami has gotten better this offseason. If anything, those 2 teams maybe stayed the same. I think the Jets have clearly improved by just having Aaron back, but then you factor in all the other moves they made around them. I think they're the best team, and if they don't get it done, I'd be disappointed, because if not now, then when? They haven't won the division since 2002.
Yeah, 81-10, man. That's a great stat. Jake, thanks so much for coming on. Great stuff. Good luck as the season gets underway, and hopefully we can talk Jets football with you here down the line. Anytime, guys. Go Qs. I'm an Ithaca College alum, so I used to go to the Carrier Dome for a bunch of Syracuse football games. So I'm hoping it's a good season for you guys. Me and you both. Go Bombers. Go Bombers. Both IC guys. There you go, Steve. Jake, thanks for coming on. Jake Asman joining us here on the program. And with that, we'll hit our final timeout. We will wrap things up next on ESPN Radio.